Ancient Mesopotamia is often credited as the cradle of civilization. That is the place where farming and cities began, and it makes it seem so peaceful, but this was anything but the case. In fact, it was really a series of civilizations that conquered each other. It was the Assyrians who really controlled the ancient Near East from about 1000 BC to around 500 BC. The palace of King Sargon II, who ruled from 722 BC to 705 BC, his palace contained huge statues that were carved at the height of Assyrian civilization in the 8th century BC. These sculptures, called lamassu, the most impressive sculptures that survive, were the guardian figures that protected the city's gates and the gates of the citadel itself. The citadel is the area within which were both the temple and the royal palace were. So at each of these various gates there were guardian figures. They were winged bulls with the head of men called lamassu. As figures that stood at gateways, they make sense. They're fearsome, they look powerful, they could also be an expression of the power of the Assyrian king. They are enormous, but even they would have been dwarfed by the architecture. They would have stood between huge arches, and in fact, they had some structural purpose. It's interesting to note that each of these lamassu are actually carved out of a monolithic stone. These are single pieces of stone, and in the ancient world, it was no small task to get these stones in place. There were relief carvings in the palace that depicted moving these massive lamassu into place. So it's important to remember that the lamassu were the gateway figures, but the walls of the palace were decorated with relief sculpture showing hunting scenes and other scenes indicating royal power. Taking a closer look at the lamassu, the crown was decorated with rosettes and then double horns that come around toward the top of the center, and then on top of that, a ring of feathers. It seems really delicate for such a massive and powerful creature. The faces are extraordinary. Just at the top of the forehead, there is a kind of incised wavy hair that comes just below the crown. And then you have a connected eyebrow, and the ears, well, the ears are that of a bull that wear earrings, actually quite elaborate earrings. The whole form is so decorative, and then there's that marvelous complex representation of the beard. You see little ringlets on the cheeks of the face, but then as the beard comes down, you see these spirals that turn downward, and then are interrupted by a series of horizontal bands. And then the wings come to form this lovely decorative pattern up the side of the animal, and then across its back. In fact, across the body itself there are ringlets as well, so we get a sense of the fur of the beast. And then under the creature and around the legs, you can see inscriptions in cuneiform, some of which declared the power of the king and damnation for those that threatened the king's work in the citadel. What's interesting too is that these were meant to be seen from both a frontal view and a profile view as well. So if you count up the number of legs in total, it seems like there's one too many. There are 5 in total, but 2 from the front and 4 if you're looking from the side. But of course one of the front legs overlapped with the other, so it makes for 5 legs. What's interesting about it is that when you look at the creature from the side, you actually see that it's moving forward, but when you look at it from the front, those 2 legs are static so that the beast is stationary. Think about what this means for a guardian figure at a gate as we approach. We see it still watching us as we move, but if we belong and we're allowed to pass through this gate, then as we move through, we see the animal itself appear to move with us. And we have this combination of this and these decorative forms that we've been talking about of this composite animal. His abdomen swells and his hindquarters move back, and then we can see the veins and muscles and bones in his leg. So there really is this funny relationship between the naturalistic and the imagination of the sculpture and the decorative part. But all of it is speaking to the power and the authority of the king and the fortifications of his palace and his city. They are incredibly impressive, and it would certainly be impossible to approach the city without being awestruck by the power of this civilization in the form of these lamassu. I'm Dylan Johnson, and thank you for joining us for another episode of Mysteries at the Museum. Be sure to check out our website for more information on future episodes.